for family. Paula watched the two leave the park and then turned away to the house, listening as her daughter-in-law Marla talked to Jack and Cammy while she made dinner. She was an excellent mother and wife to Roger. Paula had always been glad Roger had found her, but there had always seemed to be a space between them that they could not bridge. She wanted to be closer to her and could tell that Marla wanted the same thing, but they just didn't know how. The kids always loved being in the kitchen with their mom while she cooked, and she treasured it as well. All the chatter about the day and the silliness back and forth was what felt like home to her. She loved talking to her. She loved talking to them as she prepared their meals. Sorry, I read that wrong. Apparently, I can't read today. She loved them talking to her as she prepared their meals. As long as there wasn't too much going on, it had become one of their special times together. Jack was her big boy of 7, tousled brown hair and eyes so green you would swear that was where emeralds were made. Cammy was her baby girl of 5, named for her Uncle Cameron, with red hair and sweet little ringlets surrounding her face, and pale blue eyes. Her own personal china doll. Marla lavished all the affection on them that she had nowhere else to place. Every other emotion she didn't know what to do with, she turned into something for the kids. She often wondered what would happen to her once the children were on their own. They were her whole world. Would she find something that could fill the void? Or would she simply disappear when there was no one else to love her or her to love? It was not a pleasant thought when she tried to brush away as quickly as it came to mind, afraid that she already knew the answer. A family was her identity. But surely she had been something before this life. That wasn't so long ago. Was she ever brave and daring? Or had she always been looking for a place to hide? Marla remembered when she felt so full of life, she was sure she could spread it over the whole world. Big dreams consumed her, dreams of traveling and changing the world, exploring other countries and cultures. How it felt so far away, someone else's dreams, someone else's life. Jack and Cammy sat at the table giggling and waiting for Marla to give them jobs. As brothers and sisters go, they were awfully good together. There were, of course, some bickering and bad moments. In return, there was no shortage of helpful moments. Jack sometimes seemed to do as much parenting as she did. Jack shook his head, sneezing violently, and snorted at Cammy. She, in turn, almost fell off the chair, laughing at him. Jack just stared at her blankly, which of course made it all the funnier. Marla was never never comfortable cooking in someone else's kitchen. No matter how long she had been in the family, it was not her place. It always stressed her out thinking of the what ifs of another person's household. What if they don't like the way I do this? What if I break something? What if I use too much of this or that? It was endless for her. A giant stress ball. And the kitchen was the worst. Lord. It was better when Roger was around, at least that way. All questions could be fielded to him. Marla was brought out of her thoughts by Jack's sudden sneezing attack. Holy cow, ease up on the peppers, she laughed. What can I do to help? The children chimed in almost in unison. Marla passed Jack the bowl she was working on and told him to stir it gently, then went to the fridge and pulled out some canned biscuits, placed them in front of Cammy to put on a pan. Put our names on them, Cammy shouted. Yeah, Jack agreed. It was a silly thing, but the kids loved it when she took a knife and carved their initials into the tops of the biscuits. You could barely see it when they were cooked, but the kids didn't care. To them, they were personalized. Okay, she smiled. We'll put names on them. Everybody's names, Cammy said. Okay, okay, she agreed. Paula listened to the commotion in the kitchen. Even at a time like this, even when so much of her wanted nothing more than to be alone, she did truly love having them here. A part of her wanted to go in the kitchen with them and try to bridge the gap. But today just wasn't that day. Having the children here was the next best thing to having Roger and Cameron back as children. The phone rang, and Paula instantly felt a pang of panic. Roger had been handling most of the phone calls and was not here. This was bound to be another person calling with condolences, looking for information on when and where, what was needed, where to send flowers. And she hated it, like being forced to face Cameron's death every time she answered one. Do you want me to get that? Marla called from the kitchen. Paula paused. No, I'll get it. She took a deep breath and attempted to steel herself and picked up the phone. Hello, she said, her voice shaking and more of a question than a statement. She didn't know who to hope it was or wasn't. It was times like these that she wished she had taken Roger's advice and gotten that caller ID. Paula, with no introduction, the caller began speaking. Oh, I am so sorry for your loss. We just heard. Is there anything we can do? Anything you need? They asked, but didn't give Paula a chance to respond. We talked to a few people and weren't sure where the funeral was. So, how are you? I just can't even believe this is happening to, of all the horrible things a person can face. The caller continued in the worst fake drone. It was maddening. She tried to force herself to focus. She couldn't place the voice, and now they had gone on too long to ask. Oh my God, she thought. The voice was like a ball peen hammer. Her mind trailed off from listening to it in self defense, curling up like a wounded animal. She couldn't even listen anymore. Paula muttered something about calling back and put the phone down. Not hung up, just down. She turned to see Roger coming through the door with the groceries and stared at him in confusion. He glanced down at the phone. I can't, she stammered, tears pricking her eyes. I just can't. Roger put the groceries down on the side table by the door, and picked up the phone off the table. Hello? He spoke into the receiver. Oh, hi, Miss Peel. How are you? Miss Peel began to recount everything from previous ranting, and Roger tried to be patient and answer all their questions. All the while, wished to be off the phone checking on his mother. He looked over at her, reaching his arm out to wrap it around her shoulder, but just missed as Paula moved away. Managing a weak smile in his direction, she walked off, shaking her head, confused and distraught. Roger finished the conversation, ensuring that Mrs. Peel had all the information she needed to pass along to others, and hoping against hope that the information would at least slow down the phone calls. He hung up the phone, dropped the groceries off to Marla, kissed the kids, and went to find his mother. He'd find her in the gazebo in the backyard, still with that same pained, confused look. Tears streamed down her already damp face and flowed harder when he approached. You okay, Mom? He said softly. I just couldn't do it, she sniffed. I'm sorry. I should be able to do this, to deal with these things. I should at least be able to answer the phone. I just couldn't do it. Mom, stop, Roger said patiently. Don't be sorry. That is what I am for. You have just lost your son, and no one should expect you to do anything. I cannot even imagine your pain, and neither can anyone else. Roger put his arm around his mother and held her close. How strange it felt to have the roles reversed, and he be the comforter. After all these years, they had leaned and counted on her. He was not alone in wanting her advice and strength. So many people that knew her relied on her and trusted her instincts and wisdom. It seemed like a sign of things to come. Everything would change now. Until this moment, he had not appreciated how much. Now she seemed so vulnerable in his arms. They sat together, watching the evening sunlight disappear behind the trees. They didn't say much of anything, just sat, allowing themselves to just simply be. A bit of a welcome silence from the calls, appointments, and necessary arrangements. Rogers felt slightly guilty for leaving Marla alone in the house. He knew how uncomfortable she felt in other people's houses, but he thought that his mother truly needed him right now. He needed to be there too, sharing her grief. An hour passed, and Marla came out looking for them. Dinner will be ready soon, she said weakly, as if she was an intruder. Paula nodded and smiled slightly. Okay, sweetheart, Roger replied. We'll be in soon. With that, Marla retreated to the sanctuary of the children. They had truly become a welcome blockade for anything she had trouble dealing with or unwelcome moments she encountered. She put the children between her and whatever she did not want to face. Not harshly or dangerously, of course, just in the respect of making them the topic of conversation. She felt perhaps it made her weak, but most of the time she didn't care enough to change it. Roger watched her walk away. Her brown hair and pink sundress waved in the evening breeze. She was so beautiful and precious to him. He wished he had the words to tell her the things he felt for her, but he was always inadequate to that task. He stayed a few minutes longer and said, Come on, Mom, let's go inside and have some dinner with Marlon and the kids. I'll be in shortly, she said. I'm just going to sit here a few minutes longer. Start without me. I can stay, Roger protested. No, you go on, Paula insisted. I'll be along. Roger kissed her soft, wet cheek, noticing for the first time how thin her skin felt. She was his to care for now. He rose and left quickly, running the facts of this new world of his over in his mind. Paula sat there lost in the evening's soft light and fragrances. She wondered how time could keep ticking forward without her son here. How the universe could think that her baby's death wasn't significant enough to stop for. How could it not know how remarkable he was? She found it perplexing that the center of her universe was gone for the second time in her life, the passing of her husband Gene and now her son. Yet there had been no fanfare, nothing marked in the world. The thought was not only irritating, insulting, but it made her feel small and insignificant, so much smaller than she liked feeling she was. Thinking about it long enough, she began to get angry. How dare anyone or anything treat her boy as if he was insignificant? She wanted to be angry. She wanted revenge. She wanted so badly to be capable of revenge. not just some pawn in the universe's game of life. That was chapter 4. Next, chapter 5, Bob and Tina. For anybody listening, I hope you're enjoying it. Love you, oodles. Later.